Welcome to ESVN OT, the Emma Sports Vigeland Network show. My name is Emma Vigeland, and you know what to do, folks. Like this stream. Do it now, before you forget. If you're watching later, comment below. Let us know what you think. Rate us 5 stars on Apple or Spotify. And you better say hello to Bradley. I don't know what that voice was that I just did, but we're having fun with it. Hello, hello, hello. Are you there?
Hello.
Hey.
Matt has his microphone quite low here.
Oh yeah.
Just
It's because he's leaning in
he's leaning into liberal feminism.
Right. You know, that's at this show we say all of our social problems can be solved, whether it be racism or the patriarchy, if you just
Lean in
and try a little harder. Bradley, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good. How are you? I don't love seeing a 1-1-1 on my stat sheet.
I know. You want to just pull... Well, let's just do it right off the rip here. Our locks. Boom. ESVN.
Stone cold lock of the century. All week.
Yeah, that's right.
So... Yes, Bradley did go 1-1-1. You had your first push. Congratulations. Overall, though, we've both had like a really good 3-week stretch. I think I went 3-0. I remember them when I do well. 3-0 like 2 weeks ago, then 2-1, then 2-1. Bradley, you went 2-1, then 3-0, and then 1-1-1. So you had a push, but like we've kind of seemingly at least, and it's probably again gonna fall apart soon, but found our groove a bit, looking a little bit more respectable than we had previously. So last week I went 2-1. Bradley and I both selected correctly with the Miami Dolphins -5.5, winning by 6 in overtime to cover that spread. I did not get the Bears. They did not cover +3.5. The 49ers blew them out. No Eberflus firing bounce that I anticipated, and the Chargers did cover the spread, only losing by 2. The spread was 4 points to the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday Night Football. Bradley pushed with the Detroit Lions winning by 3 points against the Green Bay Packers last week. As I mentioned, -5.5. You covered for the Dolphins, and you did not correctly anticipate the Buffalo Bills -3.5 against the Rams. The Rams won by 2. So it was a close game. Like, honestly, you may have been right if there wasn't that blocked
the special teams touchdown.
The
17-7. Yeah. Agreed.
Like basically whoever was getting the ball was scoring.
Right.
So anyway, let's talk about this week, shall we? So I'm going with the Washington Commanders -7.5 in New Orleans, facing the Saints that are now without Derek Carr, who has a broken hand. That half point scares me for sure, but this week, I just couldn't find stuff that meant that I was immediately drawn towards in terms of lines. But I have no faith in the Saints without Derek Carr playing. We saw what they looked like without him playing this year. The Commanders are coming off a bye. Jaden Daniels is returning to LSU country, going down to New Orleans. So I feel like he may want to put on the show a little bit. And Spencer Rattler, Jake Haener, whoever it is, they've just been awful so far in this offense. And I just think that Dan Quinn will cook up enough good stuff to keep that offense. Like, I don't know how they score an offensive touchdown, to be honest with you. And the Washington Commanders will do just enough. I have them winning by 10. Brian Robinson Jr., he's going to be healthier, I think, coming off the bye with a little bit of rest. The Saints do have a decent defense. Brissy made a great play against the Giants last week. Their defensive line is the strength of that defense, but I don't think it's going to be enough because the offense is going to be so putrid without Derek Carr that I anticipate that the Commanders will win by at least 10.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think this is probably going to be a few ugly turnovers potentially because Haener is just not.
Or Rattler, whoever.
Yeah, I guess whoever they put out there, but also I just think they're gonna. This game is also going to involve, I think, a nearly unfair amount of carries to Alvin Kamara.
Yeah, well, that's kind of his life. Is like they have nothing else, and especially with Taysom Hill not being a part of this team, they seemingly don't know how to win without him. They almost lost that game against the worst team in the NFL, the New York Giants, last week if it wasn't for that blocked field goal. So that could have taken them to overtime, and who knows what would have happened. So I am going with the Washington Commanders -7.5 in New Orleans. Bradley, you're up next.
All right, I'm taking the Dolphins and in Houston +3 against the Texans. I think the Dolphins' offense has been playing pretty well since Tua's been back. I feel like they've found a little bit of a next gear. I think the skill position players have been playing better now that they have a little that connection back. It's a little bit of an indictment of the Dolphins' offense that it's essentially. I'm not sure if this is a word, but it's essentially unrunnable when Tua is absent.
Yeah,
but. The passing game has actually looked quite effective, despite the run game dragging behind that a little bit. But I think the passing game has looked really solid with Waddle and Tyreek rounding back into form, and with Jonnu Smith kind of emerging as a very prominent target for Tua. And I know the Texans were on bye, so there might be a little bit of they may have been rested. But honestly, I just think I could be wrong, and obviously there's still a strong chance this team makes the playoffs, but I just think this team has been stumbling almost week in and week out. I thought there would be a little bit more of a bounce back after Nico Collins returned from injury, but the defense is still the pass rush is still very solid. It's a good unit. I'm not seeing nothing that I've seen in the last few weeks from the Texans offense is giving me a lot of confidence. The offensive line still feels very disjointed, and there seems to be a lack of communication there. The run game has been almost non-existent, even with Joe Mixon back. And while CJ Stroud has been playing very, very honorably, and he's been playing very valiantly amidst all of these kind of misbegotten situations that the Texans have found themselves in, he can only do so much with how kind of sort of out of sorts this team feels. So
agreed.
Although they're at home and the Dolphins are underdogs, I still sort of think it could be closer than that. I could actually see the Dolphins winning this game.
Yeah, I totally could see it. I think that's the smart pick, actually, even though my heart wants the Texans to win.
Right.
Because I want them to be better.
No,
But the Dolphins are fighting for something since Tua came back.
Absolutely.
Like, they're fighting for a playoff spot, and that final AFC playoff spot is going to be up for grabs, especially if my next pick is correct and the Indianapolis Colts lose to the Denver Broncos. But
yeah, you and I both obviously have a definite soft spot for the Texans. So it's been we've had a tough break with the Texans this year. A bit of sophomore slump for the Texans this year.
And for CJ, but I don't necessarily think it's his fault, as we're saying. They're struggling to pass protect, and it appears like Slowick's scheme is getting figured out,
especially in the run game. Like, it's just there's something that's just not translating.
Two Shanahan acolytes going up against one another. Who will have the edge? And McDaniel is more creative, I think, than Slowick, but he'll probably have a good sense of what Slowick's trying to do, and he'll be able to give some pointers to that defense. So I think you're right. I think the Dolphins do win this game, even though it is a bit of a bummer, because I want the Texans to be better. I am going with the Denver Broncos again. I keep picking them because they keep showing up. -4 at home against the Indianapolis Colts. And again, part of me does want the Colts to be better because I like Anthony Richardson and have a soft spot in my heart for him. But at the end of the day, he has a sub 50% completion percentage. And I think completion percentage is arguably the most overrated statistic in football, because you can just, like, there was a period where Eli Manning was playing horribly and he had a great completion percentage when you could just dump it off to the running back. That's a completion. I don't care that much about that, but it is a part of, like, sub 50% is really bad. Like, it's the worst in the league, actually, among qualified passers. So Bo Nix is just having a great year. I think he's still underrated and definitely in the offensive rookie of the year conversation. Both of these teams are vying for a wild card spot. It seems much more likely that the Broncos are going to be able to secure that. They have a 2-game advantage, and so I think the Broncos defense will also have a bounce back game, because they let up over 500 yards against the Cleveland Browns in that crazy game the other week. But I think that the Broncos are going to try to come back defensively from that. They're really good on run defense, and I think that will help with Jonathan Taylor. They'll be able to stop the run. I also can see Nick Bonito continuing to have a phenomenal year and having the ability to rush the passer for Anthony Richardson, and the athleticism to keep up with AR is really important. So I have the Broncos winning, covering that 4-point spread, even though, once again, the extra point over 3 concerns me just a little bit. I still think that the Broncos are just the better team overall. Bradley, you're up next, and you are taking arguably the game of the day.
Yes, I think this will definitely be quite an entertaining and interesting game by the way that both teams have been playing so far. Even last week, obviously, with how much offense and how many points the Bills put on the board, even in a losing effort against the Rams. I'm still taking the Lions -2.5 just because, honestly, I've said this in I think the last few of our OT shows. When I've picked the Lions, it's just I'm still sort of on the wavelength of thinking that they, so far, not just in terms of their talent level, in terms of what we've seen on the field, I just think in terms of them finding ways to win, I don't see a better team right now. Even against very good competition, like having beaten the Packers in the way that they did just a few weeks ago.
Right.
I think that they have really shown up in big games, and even in games where they've really struggled, like the game when Goff had 5 turnovers, they still found a way to tough that out and win a really ugly game. So I just think they have still shown over and over that they can win in so many different ways that even against the Bills team who has, the offense has been obviously volcanic, but it was clear by having, 44 points hung on them that this defense is vulnerable. And this defense is vulnerable to an explosive offense, which is exactly what, Sean McVay tries to draw up in Los Angeles, is a number of explosive plays through the air with a really consistent run game. And now that, Kyron Williams is sort of back at full health and performing in the way he was sort of last year, I really think the Lions can kind of do something similar and kind of pick on some of the lesser talented units on this defense and exploit them.
Yep. I think I agree with you, even though I'm a little worried about the injuries on defense, as you say, and the bounce back from Buffalo after that disappointing loss in LA.
Yeah,
I tend to agree with you.
But I see what you're saying with the injuries, just because I think they've been playing above their station, but definitely, obviously, as we continue to get further and further into the season and into the postseason, depth obviously becomes so much more of becomes at such a greater premium. And with Aiden Hutchinson potentially coming back but not being healthy, obviously, Marcus Davenport. And so you're definitely seeing some of these guys have to step up in relief for some of their higher octane defensive pieces in Detroit.
And it's just Buffalo has secured their division. They know they're getting a home playoff game, and that was, I think, part of why there was a little bit of air let out of the balloon in LA. Detroit is going to be constantly fighting for their place in the division, despite having 1 loss on the year, and it's week 15.
Just because they happen to be in the most competitive division in the league.
Just because the team behind them is 11-2. So I also think the Vikings are probably going to beat the Bears this week, and that makes it even more essential that Detroit continues to win these games. So I hear you on that point, because we're thinking fairly similarly this week. We both have the same final pick, Sunday Night Football. We are going with the Green Bay Packers to win by at least a field goal, -2.5 in Seattle. I just think they're the better team. It really is that simple.
That's how I feel as well.
I understand that Seattle has one of the best home field advantages in football. I understand that they have won 3 in a row. Is that it at this point? I understand that the defense is playing a lot better, and these secondary players are starting to step up because a lot of pressure has been taken off of them now that the pass rush is getting going a bit. Leonard Williams is having a career resurgence. These are all things that I get. But the Packers' offensive line is good. I think that helps them greatly. And it's not like, even though the Seattle pass rush is playing better, it's definitely not an elite unit. For their run stopping, Leo Williams, again, great run stopper. But I do think my thesis is that Matt LaFleur can get the run game going against almost anybody. And the other thing that's a little concerning to me is that J.R. Alexander, their starting safety Bullard, another secondary player, has some injury issues, and I think they're questionable. My guess is they'll play. And I don't know. I mean, this was kind of similar last year with the Packers, where it took them a while to put it together. I'm banking on them at least putting it together here, because once again, in the same way that we're talking about Detroit, they have to keep up. if they want to make the playoffs as well.
Yeah, I agree with you in the sense that I really think, as we were talking about on Monday, the Seahawks defense has definitely come along and kind of really started to gel. But I just think based on how the Packers offense has looked, and as you were saying, Emma, especially in the run game,
Yeah.
If anyone is able to capitalize and sort of knife through even a very, very capable defense with a very, very skilled and schematically kind of aligned and very, very well constructed run game, it's going to be Matt LaFleur. And I think the Packers can also, even with the Seahawks offense introducing a little bit of motion, I do think there's a chance that the Packers can get enough pressure on Geno and stifle the run a little bit, where there potentially leads to a circumstance where Geno has to put a lot on his plate, which I think is, while sometimes can lead to success for them, can also,
it's a little feast or famine.
Right, can also lead to where Geno is overextended and it does not lead to as much offensive production as a result. So I think it'll be a good game, and obviously it's in Seattle, so good home field advantage for the Seahawks with such a devoted and frankly loud fan base. But I just think this can be one of those NFC matchups late in the season to kind of show how what tier the Packers are in relative to the rest of the field outside of their division, frankly.
Absolutely. So we're pretty of the same mind this weekend. I'm the queasiest I feel about my picks is the Packers one, just because I don't know. I feel okay about all of them. I wouldn't say I feel great about any of them this week, but I'm going with the Washington Commanders -7.5 and the Denver in New Orleans facing the Saints. I guess I'm going with all road teams here. All road favorites. Interesting choices by me, but we shall see. The Washington Commanders -7.5 facing the Saints. The Broncos. Oh, no. Denver's at home. Sorry. Jesus. I'm looking at the screen right now. The Washington Commanders -7.5 facing the Saints. In New Orleans, the Denver Broncos -4 at home facing the Colts. The Green Bay Packers -2.5 in Seattle facing the Seahawks on Sunday Night Football. Bradley's going with the Miami Dolphins +3 in Houston against the Texans. The Detroit Lions at home against the Buffalo Bills, and also the Packers -2.5 in Seattle. Folks, I am 22-18-2. Bradley is 20-21-1. We're pretty close together. Competition's heating up. We will see you on Monday.
Wait, really quick. Any thoughts on Belichick to the University of North Carolina? Kind of weird to me. But I guess if we sort of discussed it very briefly, but I guess if maybe he was seeing the writing on the wall, there was not a lot of interest from the NFL. Maybe he just sort of was like,
well, he gets full control now.
Right. I get this offer. I can have basically my little empire, my fiefdom down in Chapel Hill.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think he has connections to the university. I don't know. If I were him, I would just want to do media, but it seems like he misses coaching. And
clearly, right? Because as you were saying, he honestly is not. He has a knack for it. Funnily enough, because he, obviously on the podium and on the sidelines and in the interviews like that, he wouldn't obviously show that much of his charisma or whatever. But honestly, he's kind of like a funny and trenchant an analyst on the places that he's been on.
Yeah, he's great. He's much better than Brady.
Right, like he's just like he exhibits a huge knowledge of the game. He's amicable. He kind of gets some funny jokes out that you wouldn't expect from him. But I guess as you're saying, I think maybe he just really missed the rhythms and wanted to do it where maybe he didn't have the trappings of the NFL grind, and also as we sort of said, probably having a little bit more control over every aspect: roster construction, game plan, staffing.
So he can bring all his buddies back
and children.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. Yeah, I don't get it either, but I do just think, I don't know. He's a sicko.
Right, just a creature of habit potentially. Just even at his age now, 72, 73 years old, he can't see himself not working like that.
I'm thrilled that he is not in consideration for the Giants job. That's all I'll say.
So honestly, I think for a few franchises, maybe it would be something that obviously an NFL team would want to just take a flyer on and be like, oh, like we have Bill Belichick in the room. He like whatever, and with whatever may come with that. But I'm kind of happy that the Giants or the Jets didn't attempt it.
Oh yeah,
obviously I don't
he
think
would
the
never
Jets
go to the Jets.
Right, he kind of hates the Jets, so I don't think he would.
I just
would rather he not be in New York just because I think it's not a good idea.
He doesn't just kind of hate the Jets. The reporting is that every time it's Jets week, he's like a total maniac with the Patriots, and he just took a pot shot about the owner on air on ESPN.
No, he has, but probably I can't remember who screwed over who in that situation.
He was the assistant for Bill Parcells when he was with the Jets. The Jets fired Parcells in the middle of the season for some stupid ass reason, like they did with Saleh, and he took over. And they were trying to make him full-time head coach after he was interim, and he ended up leaving them for New England.
I can't imagine. Not to victim blame my own team, but I can't imagine they treated him particularly well.
No, but he says it openly.
Yeah, I have to imagine
he
that.
says it, and he says he hates Woody Johnson.
I won't. I can't put any. I can't show after everything we've seen this season. You have to assume every personnel conflict in the Jets, in the history of the New York Jets, is their fault.
And honestly, like Bill, I appreciate his ability to hold a grudge for that long.
No, as if you're going to be in this type of business, you frankly should.
Yeah. I mean,
pettiness goes a long way.
One of the few people that actually talks about like one of the NFL owners in any negative way.
Right, because what are they going to do to him?
Yeah.
He's Bill Belichick.
That is what I appreciate about him. So, not the whole like I'm dating a girl that could be my granddaughter thing, but
we can't express it enough. That's
disgusting.
Yeah, that's a different story.
Doing couples costumes and posing for Instagram photos.
See, that's where I draw the line.
Man, you're
born in 1951. It's just too much.
Yeah. Right. For most of your life, there were no cell phones. Okay?
Right.
For a majority of your life, there were no cell phones.
There were so many mathematical situations that you can find that are so upsetting about the age difference, but
Was he 40 when the internet was being rolled out?
And I think he was 40 prior to the internet being rolled out.
All right, guys. We will see you on Monday.
Bye-bye.
Bye.